Thanks for joining us. For this next segment, we have a really exciting guest. On the line is Jason Barnett from the Uptake.org, the executive director of the Uptake. Jason, are you there?
I am. Hi, Tina.
Hi, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
I wanted to have you on because there's a couple of things that are in the news right now that you guys are going to be involved with. The first one that I wanted to talk about is, because WikiLeaks is in the news, has been, of course, called a terrorist, and I think it was Mike Huckabee called for the assassination of Julian Assange, among other people. Others argue that he is a journalist. Just today, WikiLeaks was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing transparency into government. And you guys, the Uptake.org, you guys are citizen journalists. So I wanted you to tell us, what is a citizen journalist?
That's a pretty broad question. General, ever since the internet came about, people have been having a lot more ability to post things that are of interest to them to an audience. And when you look back just on the history of journalism in general, and especially in America, the best analogy you can strike are with the pamphleteers around with the founding fathers, and they're just a bunch of people who got a printing press and were printing up news stories or opinion and handing them out. And so the phenomenon are people posting their own opinions and sharing them, and their own news stories and sharing them, has been around for a long time. The technology has changed. The technology now is very powerful, meaning we can find information a lot better. We can share to a much larger audience very easily. And so, the idea of citizen journalism is just in a recognition of that everyone has the power to be a news organization.
Right. Julian Assange called it scientific journalism, where there's a big news dump of all these different documents, and then anybody can go through and verify if the information is correct or not. But could you walk us through, because what you guys do is you train citizens, people who are not professional journalists, and you arm them with iPhones and microphones, and they've gone out and done some pretty amazing things.
Yeah, we do all that. We train people. We train people to do more than just tell full single stories. Though we train people basically to fill our newsroom, and what that means is we crowdsource our newsroom, which means we have people that can do full range stories. From identifying what they want to tell, learning how to use all the equipment, going out and shooting, editing, and publishing the story. To people who just know how to help us with tech advice and make sure our computers are running, and help copy edit and all sorts of different things. And so we really have a broad idea of what a citizen journalist can be and how people can get active in telling news stories. We do have an editorial filter, so we do look at everything that comes through our doors, and we do publish things. Which is a little different than WikiLeaks, and there's a interesting difference that WikiLeaks does is they collect information, and then people can come in and check it out, like you were just saying, and verify it or not. They don't really publish much, and the difference is they allow, like the New York Times and the Washington Post and whoever else and the Guardian, to actually look through other files and publish what they think is interesting.
Right. Well, they publish, but they don't edit.
Yeah.
In a narrative form.
But they don't publish hardly anything they actually have.
Right.
And so they have lots and lots and lots of information that they don't actually publish. They just allow access to.
Right.
A little bit of difference. But so the New York Times goes through WikiLeaks and finds all the stuff they think is interesting, and they publish it. And then they try to avoid the criticism themselves.
Right.
And I think it's really interesting how all these tools are available to us. Organizations like WikiLeaks start up just to try to provide mass transparency, and then the age-old problem comes about is everyone blames the messenger.
Right. Speaking of which, this is a great segue into a video that I want to show our viewers, and you will, of course, be familiar with this. Can we play clip number 2?
When the mainstream media, relying on bad information, was pronouncing us dead during the recount, it was bloggers like Nate Silver who were able to change the conventional wisdom. Meanwhile, the Uptake, my state's own homegrown source for citizen journalism, the Uptake was showing the world that Minnesota is not Florida, and that our victory was fair and legitimate.
So that was, of course, from last year's Netroots Nation, and you had a little shout out from the Senator Al Franken.
Yep.
So what happened with that? How did you guys, how did that, I mean, that happened in Minnesota. You guys are based out of Minnesota. Walk us through that.
Right. Well, we started here in 2007. We've been covering politics and organizing people to cover political type stories that are of interest to them. And, the Norm Coleman, Al Franken Senate race was really tight and a big story that we were following. It went into a recount. We figured because it was so close, it was going to be going into the courts. And so we contacted the courts and asked what their policy is on cameras in the courtroom and all this stuff. And they were actually instigating a pilot. And so we were able to plug in to the court process when the trial actually happened. And so we live streamed months and months and months of the trial. And what that did, the recount and the trial. And what that did is we just allowed anybody who has, web access to view every single moment of that process. And we opened up full transparency, and so everyone could watch. We had, news organizations from around the world watching. We had law firms from around the world watching. And what that did is it put a very, very clear spotlight on how fair the electoral process is in Minnesota. Or if there was any criticisms in it, they would have been obvious.
And you would have had evidence because your army of you call them the uptakers. Your army with their iPhones, the video iPhones, would have been there to capture that too.
Absolutely, yeah. We were doing updates throughout every day, asking the different camps what their take on when everything was. And both camps are actually realized quite quickly how powerful our audience was. And so they started having press conferences when maybe 6 journalists would show up on any given day, but they would come up and give hour-long press conferences spinning their side to our cameras. And sometimes our camera was an iPhone.
Wow.
And so they both tried to manipulate the process of that, but we were able to be the ones with the breaking video of that story the entire time.
See, that was something that happened in your backyard.
Yep.
Like I said, you guys are not in Los Angeles, you're not in New York, you're not in D.C., you're in Minnesota of all places, and that was that was a deciding vote in the Senate. That was the 60-seat majority that the Democrats had for 3 seconds.
Exactly.
And so now there's 2 people who look like they're going to put a bid in for the GOP nomination this coming election cycle. Tim Pawlenty and thank you, Michelle Bachmann, right in your backyard.
Yep.
Do you guys have a game plan for that? Are you excited? You've been covering both these people really, really closely. What are your plans?
Oh boy, it's like a candy store. Both of them are pretty interesting political figures. Everyone knows who Michelle Bachmann is, obviously. Her brilliant State of the Union rebuttal the other day was something to behold, especially since you wouldn't look at anyone's cameras but hers.
Right, I was going to say, you can't look at the phone when you say that.
Yeah. Yeah, look at the phone. No, they're going to be traveling around. Tim Pawlenty just announced he's going to having what he's calling a lecture series across Iowa. So he's going, he's obviously on the track trying to get his name out there, because not many people still, really know who he is, what he's about.
And even when they do know who he is and what he's about, they don't remember him.
That, or if they do know who he is, and they still have a hard time knowing what he's about. He's kind of a confusing character in himself. He's very conservative, but he tries to play that down, or at least that's been his track record. And that's a hard thing to do when you're going into a primary, when you need to play that up. And so then you've got Michelle Bachmann, who knows how to play the game, and is very good at getting media attention. So it'll be interesting, that's for sure.
And that's fantastic. Well, again, it's the uptake.org. They're doing some really fascinating stuff. And if you get a chance, go check them out, donate money, go through training, become a citizen journalist. Jason Barnett, great to have you. We'll have you on again, when at least someone's going to actually announce their candidacy sometime in the near future, and we'll have you back. Jason Barnett,